What's up guys, it's Andrew Metal and I'm here with my first episode of Action and Ambition. I can't wait to bring you the series. So, in today's first episode, we have a friend and serial entrepreneur named Chang. Wayne just sold his last business, Crashalytics, to Twitter for $100 million. He's also invested in notable startups such as JetSmart, been a part of Dropbox, and like 50 other companies. His portfolio is worth more than $30 billion right now. And I sat with him at his home in Hollywood Hills for about 5 hours. His godmother did something when he was very young that helped him basically create his entire path. So check it out, can't wait for the series. Peace.
Somehow, very fortunately, my godmother, a family friend, but she's like my godmother, like my mom basically. I was over at her house, and there was this toy that was on the ground, and I was like, wow, cool. Why is there a TV on the ground? And it was like, no, it's not a TV. Come here. And I went over there, and there was like some weird buttons in front of it, and it turns out it was an Apple IIe, like one of those like green screen
Yes.
monster things, right? So I'm pressing on it. All of a sudden it's reacting to me. I'm like, what is this? And I became so obsessed with it, right? It could have been anything. She could have had like a baseball bat. Could have been like like a football, whatever it was. It just happened that it on the ground that day was a small computer, and I got very fortunate that it turns out that toy took over the entire world and started revolutionizing everything, right?
How old were you then?
I was about 7.
Okay.
Yeah.
And that's when you started messing around with computers?
That's when I started messing with computers, and
Wow.
I started learning programming at that age. So before college, I had applied to go to the Air Force, and so I took the test, and then the recruiter office in Andover, in Massachusetts, they really wanted me. They're like gunning me to join, and I felt that like really hard sell. And I mean, if I'm committing something for the next 5-10 years, I don't want to feel like it's something that someone's pressuring me to do. I want to be my own choice. So I immediately started cooling off on that, and they told me I got a perfect score or something on the test, and then so I applied late to college. I only applied to one school, UMass Amherst. And we had to drive up there to give them the application. It was already past the due date, and they accepted me. And then I ended up dropping out about a year and a half, 2 years later.
Yeah, and so tell me a little bit about that time where you were at school though.
I thought it'd be really natural for me to get into computer science.
Because at that time you've been programming for
I was self-taught, right?
11 years.
So I never knew what what like a formal programming thing was. And I always think that with programming, I feel like if you should have like that internal drive, right? You shouldn't have to be taught that craft. And that's when I knew that, as much as I love like helping others, as much as I love getting other people to help them learn, I'm there to learn, right? I'm there to try to soak up as much information as I can, and I'm paying tuition. And so I realized, maybe this isn't for me. So I started dropping into business classes. I started dropping into accounting classes, just things that I wasn't exposed to by myself. I exposed myself to a lot of computers, programming, technology, architecture, all that kind of stuff.
Right.
But on the business side, on the accounting side, that's the stuff that I didn't have that much exposure to. I remember getting into trouble one time though, because I was in class. I was at the school. And I found out that the UMass Amherst school system, the actual technology system they were using, were out of date. And there was like this vulnerability inside their system, and I remember using the vulnerability to get a master list of all of the usernames in their encrypted passwords, right?
Did you get in trouble? I can't remember.
Yeah, so I did. So I remember getting a phone call, and it was like Hi, this is Scott from OIT, the Office of Information Technology. We need you to come down right now. So I walk into Office of Information Technology, and right there in front of me is the director, Scott, and then to his right is an officer. So they started grilling me about everything. They ultimately ended up saying they're not going to press charges, but they want me to help them figure out, how this all happened. And then they ended up spending, I think, like a few $1 million to repair the systems. Yeah.
So
that was my freshman year.
Yeah.
That was my first semester.
And it was around that time. So you stayed in school, you said about 1.5 years?
I stayed in school about 1.5 years. I dropped in and out of it, and then ultimately I ended up not staying in class, not staying in school. I started a company at that time, and I competed with Zuck.
Yeah.
And so we were both going after the same market. Him going through with social networking, and then I was going through with file sharing. But at the time, Facebook had High Five, Bebo, Friendster, right? And the list goes on and on.
Yeah.
And then with me, my company at the time was called I2 Hub. With me, we had Nutella, Kazaa, the Pirate Bay wasn't even around at that time. BitTorrent was just about to start.
Okay, so you're still obviously in Boston at that time.
And I remember when I left school, and I had told my family, I was like, hey, so I'm gonna leave school, and I'm gonna do this thing that is controversial. People, Congress is talking about it, there's lawsuits that are happening, but that's what I'm gonna do. And, Asian family, they value like academics, right? You have to become a doctor, you have to become a lawyer, whatever it is, right? And I'm leaving to do this thing, right? So they didn't get it at all. But so lucky for me, last year I got a phone call early in the year, and it was from the dean of UMass, I think business, and he said, "Hey Wayne, the board of trustees has nominated you to get an honorary doctorate, honorary PhD. Would you accept?" And I'm thinking, how much is it going to cost me? and then so I sort of asked that in a way. It's like, no, it's an honor. It's not. There's no fee to it. And I'm like, oh, okay. So I'm feeling good. And then a few months later, I get another phone call, and this time it's from the chancellor, right, of UMass. UMass is like 5 school systems, Amherst being the largest. So this is the chancellor of all the systems, and he's like, Wayne, we were wondering if you would like to be our commencement speaker, next in a few weeks. And I'm like, oh yeah, that sounds really cool. How many people are on the panel? He's like, no, it's just you. I'm like, oh, okay, yeah, of course, sure, happy to do it. I've never been to a graduation before, right? I don't know what a commencement speech is supposed to be. So I'm Googling what is a commencement speech, right? And then, so I'm seeing these people pop up. It's like Steve Jobs, like Obama, Bill Gates. And I get there, and they told me there's 6,000 students that are graduating. So I get there, 6,000 students, plus their family and their friends. There's 36,000 people in the stadium, right? Unprepared for that. So I deliver it, and I'm like, I hope that landed well, and I hope it went well. And I was really surprised and humbled when the week after a publication came out. I was like, top 7 commencement speeches of the year, and I made that list. So I was like, that was awesome.
That's
that
really
was
cool.
a highlight. And I can finally say that I'm a doctor.
Yeah. I was there calling you doc. I don't even know.
I knew that I can always do consulting if I needed the money, because I built a machine. I knew how that all worked, the accounting, the sales process, all of that. But
say it so, I just got to stop you there, though, because there's so many people that want to make millions, and you say it so as a matter of factly, so subtly, that it was just easy for you to switch on, flip the switch and start generating millions consulting. How was it? How did you guys get that business, and what?
Well, the consulting stuff is, consulting is ultimately about arbitraging your time, or arbitraging time in general, right?
Right.
So it's about how do you get a resource like time and you can hire people for that. So you hire people at $25 an hour, $50 an hour, $100 an hour, and then you need to make sure that you find clients and you can bill them at a higher rate that covers that cost plus your overhead and then room for profit, right? And so we quickly realized that in order to do that profitably, we have to be very careful about the type of clients that we took on. And then so we created a really streamlined sales process in order to make those sales, in order to lock in those client deals. And then so the deals started becoming, hundreds of thousands of dollars per deal, right? And back then, coming out of college, right, that was a lot.
Right.
So then, but I missed doing startups. I miss doing products. Yeah. So at the consulting firm, we're helping other companies create their dreams.
Right. It's service based.
Yeah, it's service based, right? And it's awesome. But then inside me personally, I miss building something myself, my own stuff, right? And so we wound that down, and then 2011 comes along, and I co-found a company with my friend Jeff Seibert. And so Jeff Seibert and I co-founded Crashlytics together, and I love the story so much because personally I went through it. It's one of the best times of my life. Yeah. After we launched Crashlytics, 11 months after we launched, we got acquired by Twitter. And it was at the time their largest acquisition at the time. But at the time we got acquired, we were on 300 million devices. Now, 300 million active devices, right? And then now we're on about 3 billion monthly active devices, which is pretty much every mobile device on the planet. It helps app developers build better apps. Meaning, without Crashlytics, if you're an app developer and the app crashes, you don't know why, and you sort of like have to triage. When you put Crashlytics in, super easy thing, one line of code, you put it in, and then if something happens, not only do we tell you, what led up to that crash, we actually tell you like the exact line of code in your app that caused the crash. Yeah. Right? So it's like going to the doctor. Going to the doctor, and then and the doctor's like, here's the reason why, and then let me fix it right away. There's no tests, there's no triage, no diagnostics. It just the doctor just knows. Right. So this is what we did for the app developers, and we're in over 1 million apps at the moment. It's great.
And so was YC? What was your involvement with Y Combinator early in your career? Did you have involvement with?
Yeah. So I was part of the first. It was called Startup School until 2005. Paul Graham, startup school, pre-YC, and then he realized that there's a whole need here. And then so I was there during the very, very first startup school thing in Cambridge. And I became friends with a lot of people through that network. And in 2007, I was lucky enough to be part of the interview process at YC. And the reason why was one of my friends at the time came over to my house in Boston. It was Drew Houston. And he's like asking me to join Dropbox. And then so after 4 hours in my apartment convincing me to join, I mean, keep in mind, back then there's so many software for transferring files, right? And I remember asking Drew, I'm like, how many people, how many other companies are doing this? He's like, 119. And I'm like, so you want to be the 120th? And then so he's like, yeah. So we talked about it, and then I believed his vision, and I helped fund it for the first 10 weeks or so.
You sold Crashlytics to Twitter.
Yeah.
And it's 2011. How old are you at that point?
I think I was 29.
29.
Yeah.
You have a gigantic exit.
Yeah.
Did you ever dream or vision that you'd have an exit like that big, or was that something you were working towards?
We were working towards. I mean, we knew that what we were creating was super valuable, and that's why we didn't really even want to sell. Everything that happened was all inbound interest. At the time, we had maybe 4 or 5 inbound interests. Apple being one of them. Other companies had expressed that they wanted it. Square had also expressed that they wanted a shot at acquiring Crashlytics into the fold.
You're 29.
Yeah.
You you don't ever have to work again,
Right.
potentially, if you didn't want to.
Yeah.
But you decide to just continue building. You decide to like.
So I'm there. So part of the deal. We have a 4-year vest out. So we're there, and we have to. If we want to earn out the rest, it's 4 years, right?
Sure.
And so the deal value was in the 9 figures.
Right.
So it was over 100 million. And then this was, I think, about 10 months before Twitter IPO'd. And then when Twitter IPO'd, the value 3 to 5x. And then so it became, the value was even more.
Right.
And we returned 42 to 76 times our investor capital.
Those are investors for life.
Good entrepreneurs worry about the returns, the shareholders, and how to make them whole.
For sure. And so, do you have any advice as to how to really? I mean, obviously, like the returns is probably the biggest thing for shareholders. Yeah. But are there any other ways that you think good entrepreneurs can give back to shareholders, even let's say before an exit, or because maybe not so much now as it was before, raising capital and having investors and actually help with the growth cycle. I think now it's a little different, and the ecosystem's different. You have people doing ICOs and they're bypassing traditional funding, and there's a lot of creative ways that entrepreneurs nowadays are raising money. But I think that you still need those shareholders, even if it's not from an investment standpoint and their board of advisors or they're people that have taken an interest in some capacity with your company. Like, what are some other ways that entrepreneurs can do a good job of like really making sure that they're focused not just on their customers, but I think sometimes entrepreneurs forget about their shareholders.
A great way to think about it is if you're raising capital, even if you don't need the capital, carve out a little bit and try to get people to become involved, even if they put in $1,000 or $5,000. And these are people that you want as cheerleaders for you in the company, right? And then even if you think that they won't even put in 1,000 or 5,000, then even trying to get them on board as advisors, trying to give them the shares, right? Just to get them on board as cheerleaders. So one of our strategies with Crashlytics was how do we find notable people in mobile, in like mobile technology, and get them on our side. And so we did that. People, we had investors that even put in $5,000, right? And then all the way up to whatever, how many 100,000, But the goal of it was to get cheerleaders to be with you, to help push you out the door. Yeah. We had firms that wanted the whole round. And then one of our first things was, okay, well, we don't want just an East Coast firm. We want to balance it with a West Coast firm. So we had 2 firms there just to balance it out. And then on top of that, we carved out 20% of that round to give to angel investors. And as we stacked angel investors, like we had maybe like a dozen angel investors, but they had influence and they had power in the industry.
That's smart.
At the end of the 4 years, we were acquired. So when Crashlytics team in the product line, Google actually bought it from Twitter. So it was very, very, very fortunate that the team continues to live now inside Google.
Nice. Do you have any involvement currently? Like, do you?
No. I still have the relationships and friendships there.
Yeah.
They're some of the smartest people I've ever met. It's great to see how like your legacy continues and Crashlytics continues to thrive.
And I'm going to kind of like fast forward here because now you went from 2011 to 2015, and you started getting into movies around that time?
I didn't. Yeah, so I got into the film stuff later.
Okay.
So it was after Twitter, and was about the last year in Twitter. I got the opportunity to become part of like documentaries. Things that I believed in, like climate change. So one of the good ones I got into was Chasing Coral. Right. And Chasing Coral premiered at Sundance, and then during that Sundance, like the first night, I got the news that Netflix acquired it. right? And then won like an award at Sundance. And then Rotten Tomatoes had rated it, 100%. And then just last week, I got notified that it got shortlisted as one of the Oscar contenders, right? So
cool.
It's amazing. The team's incredible. I was just involved as an associate producer, but Jeff Orlowski and Larissa Rhodes, who did the film, the main guys, they're just phenomenal.
That's
phenomenal.
great.
Yeah, I'm only one guy with two hands, and there's so many problems, out there in the world. I can't, be everywhere at once and do them all and try to tackle all those myself because it'll be fun. Not saying like I could actually do it, but just to be involved. So the way I can satisfy that and the way that I can promote that impact is by investing in entrepreneurs that can do that.
For sure.
And so, one of my biggest things is I love aviation, and so I was very fortunate to become one of the seed investors in JetSmarter. Another one is I love anything space related, so I was fortunate to be involved in this company called Planet Labs. Planet Labs, they launch satellites into the sky, microsatellites in the sky.
You're in, I think you said roughly 55
Yeah, about
investments.
55, 60 investments.
Yeah, that's amazing.
And it's and then I don't plan on stopping anytime soon.
Yeah.
I believe in great entrepreneurs first, and then I try to help them with their ideas and their projects.
As an angel investor, you look obviously for the entrepreneur and idea, but you have a criteria you follow. So
Yeah, so
share that.
Yeah, so
'cause it's
criteria.
insightful.
Yeah, so criteria that I follow. I first ask them, or I first try to see if they've done it before, right? So if they're an investor and they've done it 10 times before and they've exited all 10, it's pretty much a blank check on the 11th one, right? It doesn't really matter. But let's say that it's a first-time entrepreneur. Then I would ask them. Then I would try to find out. Okay, well, what are they trying to build? Can they do what they say they'll do, right? Do they actually have the expertise? Some guy says, "Oh, I want to build a mobile app, but I don't have the expertise to do it." Well, can they recruit someone to help them do that, right? Can they actually execute on what they say they want to do, right? Or are they before that? But let's say that it's a first-time entrepreneur that can't do what they say they'll do. And the third one is, have they corralled enough support around them? Do they have, let me see who's backing them. Let's say they're like, oh, first-time entrepreneur, I don't have the expertise to actually build it, but I have the CEO of American Express on board.
Right.
I have, the CFO of General Motors, backing us as well. And that's like, okay, well, that de-risks it for me, right? So those are the three things that I look for as like a first filter before I dive in deeper. In my line of work, entrepreneurship, venture capital, startups, the currency we have is introductions, right? Warm introductions. It's a trust-based thing.
So how does Wayne think? Like, are you analytical? Are you emotional? Like, how does your brain work?
The way that I'm wired, the way that, what makes me me, I'm more intuitive. So I know people, and I know how they feel. I know what makes them feel that way. I know how through product, through words, through communication, through marketing, how to engineer like that journey, that experience for them, right? And so we did that with crash reporting. Like that is one of the most boring software things you can build. We're not building.
You guys made it sexy.
Yeah, it wasn't Instagram. It wasn't anything that was like super sexy, but we made it sexy.
Right.
We made people want it.
Wayne, man, been a pleasure. Thank you so much.
Of course.
Peace.